in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The agenda is approved. For council president comments tonight, first I just wanted to pass on our condolences to the family members of Reverend Benny Santiago, who served as chaplain in Madison County for quite a long time. Also to those who served with him. We know that's a big loss to our community. So, so it's bad. Seems like we're losing some good ones right now. But next up would be the auditor's report. Rick?
Good evening. So just got a couple things to cover with you, basically just a couple fund balances for the end of the year, and there's a couple resolutions on tonight. So I'm going to give you some numbers and then tell you where those numbers would be if those resolutions was approved, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. So your general fund balance at year end, December 31st, was $12,745,000. We like a number at $9.5 million to get us from tax draw to tax draw. That would include monthly lit payments that come in, a variety of different miscellaneous funds, revenues that come in. But that number at year end needs to be $9.5 in order to make it till the next tax draw. So we're at $12,745,000 there. The rainy day fund is sitting at $1,956,364. If you'll remember at the beginning of last year, that number was $36,364. So we're getting on our way to have a rainy day fund that we definitely need. Your public safety fund at year end was sitting at $453,000.
What was that, Rick?
Public safety fund was $453,011. So 12,745, $1,956,364, and $453,011. And those are the funds that you guys deal with the most. So that's the reason I'm bringing those to you. So do you want me to go ahead with the explanation of the ordinance, or you want me to wait till that time? I don't know where that's at on your agenda.
That's after the reorganization, so
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind,
I'll wait.
We could go there.
Oh, go there now or wait?
No, we could wait, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nothing on the agenda under old business, so new business. The first item is reorganization of county council officers. And I'm asking Chief Deputy Auditor Todd Culp to lead this first portion of that.
We're going to reorganize the county council officers, so if anybody would like to make a motion for president, please do so.
I would like to nominate Ben Gale for president one more year.
Second.
Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay, we'll close the nominations for president. Would you like to go ahead and vote on that? We'll do it by roll call.
Okay.
Councilman Vaughn,
What is this for? President?
president.
Yeah.
Councilman Reese,
Abstain.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Emery,
Yes.
Councilwoman Likens,
Yes.
Councilman Steele,
Yes.
President Gale.
Yes.
President Gale will be the president. At this time, we'll take nominations for vice president.
I'd make a nomination of Rob Steele for vice president for 2022.
I got a motion from Anthony Emery for Rob Steele for vice president. Would there be a second?
I'll second.
Okay, are there any other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote for Rob Steele for vice president. Councilman Vaughn,
Sustain.
Councilman Reese,
Abstain.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Emery,
Yes.
Councilwoman Likens,
Yes.
Councilman Steele,
Yes.
President Gale.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Todd. Congratulations, Councilman Steele. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-1A, a resolution moving money from general fund to rainy day fund. And so, Rick, if you'd like to explain this one.
Okay, as I mentioned a while ago, our general fund is at $12,745,000. We need an operating balance in there year-end of $9 to $9.5 million. So what we would like to do, if the council saw fit to approve this resolution, is to move an additional $2 million from the general fund to the rainy day fund, which would put us at $3,956,364. When you talk to your financial advisors, along with just a history of what numbers need to be in that rainy day fund, that's typically about 10 to 15% that we need. So that means on a $40 million budget, our rainy day fund should be at about $6 million. And we're on our way there, and with our lit revenues this year that are directed to the rainy day fund would put you by the end of this calendar year, 2022, with your rainy day fund. If you move this over, you will meet your goal or just short of your goal of $6 million. You will end up at $5.7 million at year end, 2022. And you'll be right where you need to be. I will say, I sat on the council for 6 years prior to being in office for the last 5 years, and talked to one of my deputies that's been in there for 40 years. She's never seen the county have a rainy day fund that was healthy, and certainly not near these numbers. So you're getting on your way to some financial stability, and I would suggest that you consider passing that tonight on Resolution 2022-1A.
Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to pass Resolution 2022-1A, resolution to move money from general fund to the rainy day fund.
Okay.
And I will make a comment. Typically if you have excess money, it's too easy to spend it. So I think we would be wise to move that fund, that money into the rainy day fund.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Alexander, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a comment if I may.
Okay.
I agree with the auditor that it's very important that we have this rainy day fund and build that up. We've faced several expenditures that were surprises to the county over the last several years, and we've scrambled to try to find funding to take care of things such as the elevators and several other projects. So we're robbing Peter to pay Paul just to basically get by. So this is of vast importance, I think, to have this and establish this and build this up so that when, not if, but when those items come up, we do have a funding source to be able to take care of those things not considered and appropriated in the current budget. Thank you.
I would also say that it's a significant thing that in 2 years' time we'll have been able to accomplish this, assuming we do our jobs as a council and continue on this track through 2022, and it could lead to not just stability but additional cash flow in future years that can be used to better serve our constituents. So thank you to the council for helping make this possible. Thank you to Rick and your office for also working so diligently on this. Any other comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Resolution 2022-1A passes. Next we have Resolution 2022-1B, a resolution loaning money from the general fund to public safety fund.
Okay, this, let me go back to the general fund for a second. Your general fund, after your approval just now, at year end December 31st would be $10,745,000. So what we're asking is similar to what we done last year, but we didn't loan as much to the public safety fund. I think it was a $700,000 number last year. But what we'd like to do is that the payment for the sheriff department retiree fund is $1,286,535 due in December. But if we pay that 12 months in advance, that money can be invested 12 months ahead of time within the same budget and calendar year, which will help strengthen that fund. They can realize the investment revenue 12 months early, which is good for the fund. So we would suggest that we do that again this year. Now, we would like it at some point to get where we can just do that out of that fund in January. We can't do it right now. But if we do loan that from the general fund with a $10,745,000 balance, and we loan that $1,286,000, that will leave $286,565. That will leave $9,458,465 in the general fund. And as I said before, 9 to 9.5 million is what we want. So we would be $41,535 short of the higher number of 9.5 million. We feel comfortable with that. That would be paid back as revenues come in during the year. But by law, it has to be by December 31st. So that $1,286,535 has to be paid back by December 31st of 2022 to the general fund, because it's a borrow. It's borrowing your own money without any interest.
What is that number, Rick?
The amount we would loan to with the resolution 2022 1B would be $1,286,535, and that would be a loan to the public safety fund, which right now only has a balance of $453,000.
What is the number? We just raised, the public safety tax got raised to .03. We get that monthly. Do we have a number on what we get a month?
It's about $125,000 a month.
And what's this going for the sheriff's retirement?
This would be
fund?
paying that bill 12 months early. It would be making that investment 12 months early. So it'd be the reverse of paying a loan off 12 months early. You're going to gain investment 12 months early. I mean, in simple terms, anyway. So I think it's a wise idea to do it. The general fund is where it needs to be after a transfer to the rainy day, and gain that $2 million on top of that, loaning that, and have better investments in that account for that retirement fund, and still leaving us at the high end of what we need to operate.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And a comment, I think the sheriff would appreciate us saying that this is not for his retirement, it's for the retiring sheriff's officers.
I tried to change my verbiage this year.
Anyhow, in light of inflation and the inflationary items that the county has to deal with, have you worked up any kind of assessment of, you're saying 9.5 million is where you like to be, but when we're talking about 6% inflation this year,
Right.
and all the things that we buy, shouldn't that really be higher based on?
It would be, the number I need would be based on what kind of budget you set. So you're not going to be able to set over your budget, unless you're not going to be able to spend past your budget unless you appropriate more money. So you would have to be careful to not to over appropriate during the year and cause us to be short. But if we're within that 9 to 9.5 million, we can operate. Yes, items will be more expensive this year, but who knows? We have money left sometimes at the end of the year just simply because the whole budget doesn't get spent, and we're calculating all year not what was budgeted, but a historical spending history, and what we think you're going to spend this month, or the county's going to spend this month, rather than what's budgeted to spend. And there's a track record of what happens and when it happens, unless there's some big skewed item like this that would get paid early, and of course.
So basically, each when we worked on a budget, we didn't have inflationary pressure to deal with. None of us realized that natural gas was going to go up 40%, and the gasoline is almost doubled for the departments that has vehicles. So realistically, we have not yet budgeted
the inflation.
into our budget those inflationary items, which we're going to have some flexibility
I would agree.
as we're moving forward to cover that, those unexpected expenses.
I would agree with that. So what I would say is, going forward from today, I'm telling you that I need $9 million there minimum. So you have $500,000 that can cover your inflation for calendar year 2022. Fred's grinning. But so be cautious when you appropriate new money during this year, because you do have an inflation factor. I haven't factored that inflation number, so I couldn't tell you what that's going to be.
Rick, when, with this being a loan from one fund to the other, the process for paying that fund back, would it be, we wait until December, or as we get draws, some money would start to go back?
Whenever it cash flows for us, based on what you do with this tonight, you may or may not have any cash flow.
Right.
Because the request tonight, I think, is a couple $100,000 over the max that you would get if we were setting it December 31st, 2022. So all that's got to be taken into consideration. That's the reason we write budgets every year and try to hit those numbers. Inflation, we knew it was coming. We knew it was there, but I haven't calculated or even thought about what number that's going to be added on to that budget because of that. Or maybe you just do it less. So,
Hey, Rick, when I asked you about the .03 tax, 125,000, that's 1.5. Is there a separate fund with the other 1 point? Because with the .03, the cut of the general fund coming in 22 would be, what, 2.96 million, almost 3 million.
you guys aren't getting the other 1.5, so.
Right, does that go, does that go to the jail bond? Is that already set up?
Let me figure that for you real quick. There's really two components, but three issues. One is the jail. The jail is, I didn't bring that over here with me, but the jail is going to bring in $5.3 million for the jail tax and change. Okay, so.
That's a .02 jail tax.
Right. And then the public safety increase is going to bring in the $3 million. But if you remember, a big portion of that, or half of that number, but a big point to be made in that was the jail bond coverage, in order to get the right rates, had to be covered at 1.25%.
Right.
I believe it was 1.25%. So that $1.5 million of that $3 million additional you're going to get this year is to cover the bond payment if you don't collect enough. You have to guarantee that for when you go to bonding.
So we're 1.5 is going in to cover that. Out of that 300.
It goes into the same fund. You'll have to be cautious as to what you appropriate, because I don't think there's a way that we can, I haven't made that phone call yet, but it's public safety funds, so it has to go in the public safety fund. I don't know if we could generate a 1170-1. I don't think so, and put that 150 in there. I don't think we can do that, but I haven't checked that yet. I would like to keep it separate, just so we don't get ourselves in trouble, and we make sure that's available when we start making bond
Just
payments.
create a separate line for that, designated to that, for that fund.
It all goes in the 1170 right
Right.
now. I don't think they'll allow us to separate it, but I would like to if they would.
Okay.
Okay. On resolution 2022-1B, is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Alexander,
Second.
second by Councilman Steele. Is there any discussion?
One question. On the public safety, you're gonna take some money out of it.
Going to take money we're going to loan from the general fund to public safety, because that retirement fund payment is budgeted in public safety.
Okay.
So it would not generate enough money all year till December to make the payment.
How much will we actually have to work with? If someone was to come and request money out that fund, how much money can we work with?
Now, the general fund, you got about a half.
Out of the public safety.
Oh, public safety fund. It depends on what you do. You're going to generate, is that number $3 million additional? Yeah.
I mean, what do we have actually now? I'm not talking about what
450.
down the road.
There's 453,000,
That's
but.
what we have now, right?
Yeah, there's no cash flow there right now until you start collecting this new money. Now, I mean, you get it every month, so we've collected our first
125,000.
payment of jail tax and public safety under the new rates, which happens about the 5th or 6th of the month.
Now, Rick, there's other departments designated already, and I believe in the new budget, that gets money out of public safety, right?
There is, yes, there's more than one, budget, but yeah, I think you got a public defender in there, or probation officer maybe in there. You got the problem-solving court that's in the public safety fund.
You know how much total that equals to what's coming out in
I don't
'22?
have that budget with me, I'm sorry.
Roughly 1.9 million.
Because that was all budgeted based on previous public safety
Right.
revenue, not the additional.
Yeah, so there's no room in the old rate and the money that would be coming in under the old rate to do any of this. Whatever you've done tonight would be basically, I won't say it this way, but kind of like a new budget based on whatever you might want to do with the new public safety that you didn't have and didn't know that you would have until you passed your budget. So
So you feel safe doing that?
oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm actually giving money to the public safety fund for as much of a 12-month period. I would like to get it back over before that, but there's no need to because it's going to be in the same bank account for the treasurer to invest no matter which fund it sits in. So that part won't matter. It's just really an accounting procedure. And we can't, if it's budgeted in public safety, the appropriation has to be, the cash and the appropriation has to be in public safety in order to make that payment to the investment company in January.
For the sake of clarity, the ARPA funds, they are not commingled with our current funds?
They're in
or-
a fund of their own, but the cash is all in the
What I'm
bank.
saying is, it's not included in this 9.5 million that we have cash on hand. The ARPA funds is,
No, totally separate.
it's totally separate, and there's a process of how we spend that through
Right.
the Madison County Council of Governments.
That's right. That's right. Now, in addition, if I could add one more thing, I haven't done this yet, but I want to talk to the treasurer and see if he would be interested. Investments are all up to the treasurer. I wouldn't want to get in his lane. Dan does a fabulous job. We appreciate Dan, and we're glad he's here. But what I would like to do is maybe see if he would be interested in maybe taking the rainy day fund balance and investing it separately from the general fund. You got all the funds, but all the cash is in the same bank, but he can invest it separately if he wants to. And then if it's invested separately, it can also derive its interest separately. But if it's all piled in the same place, it diverts to the general fund. So maybe if you get a large, or at any number, but especially when you get $5.7 million in the rainy day fund, and if he can invest that by itself, because it's sitting there unless you have a catastrophe, it really should never be touched. So now it can generate interest on its own and feed that fund. And maybe from the investment in that fund, as you have smaller, rainy day issues, they might be able to fund it without touching the base. So,
Rick, I got another question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so all things considered, it's a nice problem to have right now, right?
yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it, so.
I'm thinking back what you just said, and from last year, I followed you. Every month you got up here and said, don't spend money, don't spend money. And I think we're on the right track, but then it kind of makes me nervous on the other hand when you said, be careful what you appropriate. Right now, and I know it's hard to predict a lot of numbers, as of going forward, this is the first month, first council meeting, and I heard you say cash on hand and all this and where we're going, but to appropriate new money for the whole year, what would you build? I mean, if we had new appropriations, what would you feel safe appropriating the whole year that you're solid to say, don't go over 2 million appropriations? Don't go.
Your lit revenue is guaranteed. The state already certifies the numbers before the end of the year. divided by 12 months, that's what you're
Right.
getting every month. So
Right.
we know what number we're going to get.
Right.
But you could not and do not want to appropriate more than you're going to get. You know, if the economy dives and there's less lit collection in 2022 or 2023, then you may have a budget up here and you now have to get down here somehow. I don't know
I guess
how to
my main
predict that future,
question,
but
I guess my main question is, I heard you last year for 12 months say, be careful what you spend, careful what you appropriate with new money. We make a budget every year, but I want to hear from you because you're involved in it, you're the auditor.
Right.
What would be comfortable to you? Don't go over this certain amount, so we're okay with the budget.
well, what I'm telling you in the general fund, after you, did you vote on that ordinance yet?
We have not
Okay.
yet, so.
If you were to vote on that resolution and we move that over to public safety to pay that investment early for the retirement plan, you would have, you're at, like I said, $41,000 short of the higher number between 9 and 9.5 million where it's comfortable to operate. So if you wanted to draw it down to, I don't necessarily suggest that, but 9 million, you literally have about $500,000 during this year that you could say yay or nay to in the general fund.
About a half
That
million.
doesn't mean you have to spend every penny that we have.
And
So-
perhaps some of that should, again, be kind of held on to for a while until we see
Right.
the inflation
Right,
effects.
exactly. That was an excellent point that Jerry made, is you got an inflation rate that you don't know how it's going to affect. I know it affects me every time I fill my gas tank up.
So much of the $500,000, we need to be very careful how we,
I would be careful what
because
you.
I get, we do have a pretty good budget this year, right?
I think so, and keep in mind, you're in the first month, so.
Right.
11 days. Fred said 11 days.
Thank you, Rick. I
So
appreciate
I like where we're sitting. It puts a smile on my face, especially if you do this other deal, just because anything that we can do to get ahead, just like for the last few years, we paid off a couple loans early. We didn't pay them off way early, but we paid them off a year early, or we tried to make payments when they were due in January and July, and we would try to make if the cash flow was there, which if your cash flow is too tight, you can't do it. But we would make the July payment in January and save 6 months of interest on that huge payment that we were able to pay 6 months early. It wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was $6,000 here or $8,000 there. That adds up.
Right.
I like these numbers. I would love to see you transfer that over so we can make that payment early. And that money isn't lost. It's just not there for you to operate with again until December. And maybe next January you say, okay, let's do it again. Or maybe your public safety fund is where it can fund that up front.
Right.
Okay.
Well, then, if there are no other questions on Resolution 2022-1B, we do have a motion to approve in a second. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That resolution passes. Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 2022-1C, a resolution to approve encumbrances for 2022. Rick, was that something you were going to?
Stay up there, Rick.
Yeah.
Encumbrances, just a short version of it, are basically if departments have purchased money or purchased items from their 2021 budget, and they had the money available, the appropriation available, they made the purchase, but just the way the claim cycle works, could not get it in and paid for by the end of the year. The law allows us to encumber that appropriation into next year, which would be 2022. So the encumbrance basically adds to your 2022 budget by $68,000. So we go through these and analyze them and say, yeah, that's eligible, that's not. We go back and look and, oh, yeah, you had the appropriation available, you made the purchase, your invoice date's right. Yes, you can have the appropriation. So it's my job to bring this to you in January and for you to say yay or nay on whether or not you want to grow your budget by $68,000. You could say yes, or you could say no. It's not a mandatory thing, but it's something that you have to approve in January. We prepare it, and you guys make that call. It's I don't know how many of these. It looks like these are all general fund items. So keep in mind that $458,000 that we're saying you have to play with. When you approve this, 68,000 of that is shaved off because you're growing the budget by $68,000. So, but there will be, out of the entire $41 million budget, I'm sure there's $68,000 that won't get spent this year, depending on how much you approve for other people. So I don't know how else to explain it, but I don't see where this is going to hurt anything. And these were legitimate purchases last year. And my suggestion would be that you would improve those encumbrances.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2022 1C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Vaughn and a second by Councilman Reese. Is there any discussion?
Rick, we set aside some money for encumbrances for the coroner, and that's not in here.
There wasn't an encumbrance turned in.
Didn't turn it in.
All right. Any other questions or discussion?
Is it too, I mean, we're going to have to deal with this later, Councilman Gale, that if it's not, or, okay, go ahead, Rick.
Rick can explain the process.
Encumbrance is the deadline, the 31st December. The deadline for turning in an encumbrance is December 31st of the prior year in order to be eligible. So again, if you had an invoice and you had an appropriation to pay it, but you can't get it through the claim cycle in time to get paid in 2021 calendar year, and you fill out your encumbrance paperwork and turn it in, and it would become part of this ordinance, it has to be done by December 31st. If they don't turn it in, there's no way you can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's no other comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The resolution passes. Thank you, Rick. Next, we have several transfers.
Very good to do these in mass.
I'll make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Question. I looked over this packet, probably one of the thickest packets I ran across, especially 11 days into the 22 season. I want to ask Rick a question. You've been dealing with this quite a while. Why we have so much massive transfers, especially after a budget? Why do we have so many massive transfers? What's going on?
I mean,
This is just not a good,
You'd have to ask the office holder. I don't know the reasoning for their transfers. I can see, I can tell you about a couple of them that I'm aware of. The youth center here, I don't know for sure, but they made some purchases at the end of the year. They're transferring from from a supply line into whatever they're going to be buying is really equipment rather than a disposable supply. So that I don't know what it is they bought, but evidently the supply they bought qualifies for machinery or equipment, and that could be a monitor, but I don't know what it is they're asking for. Now the sheriff's here, so maybe he can explain what his
Are
is.
these transfer emergencies? Are these emergencies? Or something that could be done down after the budget, kind of work the budget of 6 months down the road and kind of see just some of the things they could do down, when we get to that point?
Yeah,
I'm just a little
I don't know
afraid
the reasoning for their transfers, so you'll have to ask them. I really don't know. I wish I could answer that, but
Rick, you've been in how many terms? How many years? 6 years? You've been to 6 council meetings. It seemed like to me, this is bigger than last January. Has this been increasing with these transfers? I mean, it's been an issue, it seems like.
if you look at this, just to be fair, you've got, I don't know the reason for their transfers. You'll have to ask them. But the new money requests in January, some of these happen every year. It's like let me just go through them here. Local drug-free communities, clerk's perpetuation fund. Those aren't general fund items that they don't write budgets on, and those are done the first of the year in place. sexual violence offender fund. Those are funds that are not the funds we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. General fund, public safety fund, those items are of concern. These generate their own revenues of some sort or another, where it's through a fine or a fee or whatever. And then it just has to be appropriated for them to be able to use it. I have a plat book maintenance fund. I do mine at budget time. Whether I use it or not, I go ahead and budget it. But some of this stuff, they just might not be able to make happen. But those do not affect the numbers we talked about. So
Not a general fund.
on those oddball funds, yeah. Now, you might have, sometimes, there might be a protective vest grant or something, so police officers can get a new protective vest, things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of grants. I think the health department might have one here, health maintenance fund.
So some of it
So
they
it's just-
can't help because of how
Yeah,
their
and
financial
I don't want to
setup.
say they don't matter, but they're in funds where they're doing specific stuff with specific rules that
But
they
should
can use
this
that
be
money
done in
for.
their budgets?
If they would budget it, you wouldn't have to do this, but the transfer, I mean, here's the transfers, and they need to explain those, because I really don't know why they're transferring or why they need to. I'm just guessing at some of it. So those transfers, this is all new money requests.
I guess
Yeah.
I guess it's unfair to you, but Mr. President, I was just asking that question because generally we come into a blanket, and some of these things we really need to look at,
Well,
really
if
to look at.
the council would like, we could, especially with the general fund transfers, we could single those out the way we do new money request, have the office holder, if they're here and would like to come and explain the rationale for the transfers, we could do that.
And Councilman Gale, that's why I mentioned that last time, because I know that, well, I was questioning with, it just seems like all last year we're getting more and more transfers. And I know the budget one is as great as when, the year before, but now we have a good budget.
Right.
And this concerns me because it's like, man, this is the first month.
Yeah,
And,
right.
and so I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
to, that all transfers, unless they're emergency transfers or that can be explained, and it can come in front of the council, that we don't transfer any money until June. That's my motion. Unless they can explain, and that way that protects us, council, and it because we just did a good budget, and I just don't think it's right to the taxpayer. I mean, we need to be very careful. We've been told by the auditor, we got to be very careful, so I make that motion.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
I'd like to comment too before
I
we're
think-
done, because
I think we're getting lost in the weeds here on the difference between an appropriation and a transfer. This is not a new appropriation. This is a transfer within this department's budget that we approve the budget. Once we approve these department heads' budgets, for us to micromanage them and tell them what they can or can't spend their money on or transfer their money to, or they have a new ticket item that they weren't aware of, that all of a sudden now we got to move it out of this line to pay that. Folks, we're getting lost in the weeds on this. This is not something that we want to do. This is going to take, our meetings are going to go to midnight. And again, this is transfers. It's not new appropriations. It's within their own budget. Now, I agree, I'd like to see zero transfers coming here in January, but this is something that we've been working on since I've been on the council, trying to get money moved into the right line items. There's always going to be items that come up that we need to transfer money for, and these folks should have that right and that latitude to be able to do that within their own budgets. For us to take that away from them or to make them come in here and justify that on every transfer they want to do, to me is just a waste of their time and a waste of our time. It's their budget. We approved their budget, and once we approve that budget, they should be able to do whatever they want within that budget. They're not asking for new appropriations. These are transfers. So I think we got to clarify that and make sure that we understand what we're really getting into here if we do that.
Well,
Rick, did you say you had a?
well, there is one transfer I think that needs to be taken care of, but and I can elaborate on that, and the office holder probably will too, but if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one transfer that exists, and it's in It's in the Madison County Coroner's budget, and the commissioners have asked the coroner to come up with a proposal to outfit the new cooler that's been purchased. So he would not have that money in his budget in order to outfit that cooler. So it was suggested that for this month, he transfer from his professional services and then come back at a later month, I think maybe next month, and ask for an appropriation to cover that item. It kind of slowed down the process of what's trying to happen if you did not consider that transfer.
So that's our first transfer for.
That one's probably out. No, he included it in the packet. We had to rush
Yeah,
to
it's
get that one in.
Second page, top
Fifth
item.
page.
All right, since we're specifying, I would make a motion to approve the coroner's request for that particular transfer of fund because he has been required to basically get the equipment for that particular morgue space.
Councilman Alexander, I got a motion on the table, so
Oh, it
I'll,
hasn't been seconded.
Huh? No.
Your motion was
I'll
not
withdraw.
seconded.
He's gonna withdraw it.
I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
So I apologize because I.
That's okay.
I didn't, did you not, I didn't think that you seconded it.
No, I did not.
Okay, so it didn't have a second, so I would make that motion to just get started on some of these transfers so that we can, because that's a legitimate transfer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Alexander and a second by Councilman Reese to approve the general fund transfer from the coroner's budget. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That transfer is approved. So would we like to hit these general fund transfers individually, allow the office holder to come and speak to them? If so, then Sheriff Mellinger would be number one on the list.
Thank you and good evening. Scott Mellinger, Sheriff's Office. We submitted these transfers for, I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of our 110 employees who are severely underpaid to give them a raise. Because of the deadline to turn these transfer requests in, and some of us thought there would be a personnel committee meeting between the deadline to turn the transfers in and this meeting. That's why you see those from the sheriff's office. I'm very well aware that the personnel committee needs to give you their recommendation on salary increases. But that's why these are here. Once there wasn't a personnel committee meeting, I did not expect you to vote on this. But that's why you see those transfers. It's to give, what did I say, 7, 8 employees a raise that I asked for in the budget. Yes, I did ask for it in the budget. It was turned down. So I'm willing to withdraw it, put it before the personnel committee, which is what I intended to do, but there was no meeting.
Quick question, Sheriff. Was this in your original presentation that you made to the Personnel Committee 6 months ago or so?
No.
It was not? Okay, all right. My apologies. I thought that was included in that.
That's
so-
okay. That's
Yep.
all right.
Sheriff, did these employees, this is it, I hope I'm on the right one, because it's such a thick packet. Head cook 2, cook
Yes,
3.
yes.
Now, didn't they get the 3% raise?
They did. But they were already severely underpaid.
I'm just thinking how fair it'd be if people start finding out we're transferring money for raises, and you get what I'm looking at. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I'm saying.
Well, when we
they
have-
find out
when we
we're
have it-
transferring, then they're like, why can't we? And I want to start something that,
I feel that we're paying for it out of our budget, so that's my main rationale. And it's coming from positions, we've lost so many jail staff who had 7, 8, 10 years on, so their pay was quite a bit higher, especially if they were supervisors. So there's cushion in all of those spots. That's why I'm asking for it, and the Personnel Committee will either say thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm more than willing to do that, but that's why these are here tonight.
Thank you. So then.
You're welcome.
We'll allow this to go through the process of the Personnel Committee, and then
Sure.
If they or make the recommendation, we'll do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And we'll definitely have one before the next meeting.
Appreciate it.
All right.
I have a question about that. Do we, not to you, Sheriff, thank you. Do we need to create an ordinance that needs to be approved for any salary increases?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
probably, yeah.
So the Personnel Committee on any salary increase would need to at least hear the request, and then we approve it, and then create a salary ordinance and approve the salary ordinance. Because by state statute, we're required
Right.
to create a salary ordinance because we've already approved a salary ordinance. And any increase in pay we cannot do legally without that new ordinance being approved. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I mean, there's some leeway, right? There's two parts of it. There's the appropriation part and there's setting the salary. You could actually approve the appropriations and then have a retroactive salary ordinance to a certain date. The better way to do it, again, is the reason we have the compensation committee, is so all those requests for salary increases.
Right.
Alone.
Right.
Perfect. Okay.
And again, the sheriff, I think his intent was to go through that process. He met the deadline that's required to submit things, thinking there would be a meeting, and that didn't quite happen. So that makes it appear that we're a little out of order, but I don't think that was ever really the intent. So the next general fund transfer would be the prosecutor's office, Chief Deputy Hannah.
Actually, it'll be me,
Okay.
Heather McLean. I'm going to speak on behalf of our Victim Assistance Director, Betsy Baxter. This is actually out of her budget. She was actually advised by the auditor's office to make this transfer because this is for her copier printer fees. She can't pay it out of the printing and advertising line. It has to be paid through the rental line. So they just simply ask that she reappropriate that $720 from printing and advertising to the rentals, just so she could pay her bills.
Right. Okay.
Need a motion?
Could we have done this in the budget, Heather?
It probably should have already been appropriated to that.
So why, I guess why, and I'm not trying to pick, I'm trying to get this, why we just did a budget, so,
I agree. I can't explain that other than she went to pay her bills, and one of the members of the auditor's office told her, you can't pay that out of that line. It needs to be paid out of this line. So do we just need to transfer that?
okay.
So,
I think Fred's made a motion. I second the motion.
Okay, so Councilman Reese made a motion, second by Councilman Alexander. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 thank
All
you.
opposed? Thank you. Youth Center, Mackenzie Ash? Oh, she's, so we have Judge Coaster.
Hi, I'm Judge Steve Coaster. I'm the judge of the Circuit Court 2, which oversees the juvenile court. So I've had some conversations with Ms. Ash about this request. It is for replacement cameras, a refrigerator, and 4 or 5 new computer monitors for secure detention. The cameras, we need a whole new system out there. We've had the same camera system out there since the place was built, I think in the 80s. So we periodically have to, until we get a new system in there, there's some cameras that need replaced. So that's the request that she's making.
Make a motion that the request be received.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Reese, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion?
I have a question. Now, where is this going to put your operating supplies? Is that going to create a situation where 2 months from now, we're going to get a request, we're going to need to get new money for operating supplies because you've transferred?
That you would have to ask Ms. Ash. I don't know. I'm filling in for her because she's been ill, so.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant amount of money to transfer out of
Yeah.
an operating supply budget that probably is relatively small to begin with, and then, I'm afraid that this is going to put you in a deficit in that budget item. So, but that's my only comment, that
Judge, who does your budget?
Ms. Ash, for the youth center?
Ms. Ash, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, Councilman Alexander. This is kind of what I'm worried about too, depleting and then later on in the year coming back and asking for new money. I mean, that's been an issue, whether you want it or not. And that was another question I have on these transfers. Not that it's not needed, but some of this stuff should be in the budget, and it scares me when we start transferring and then we get short. And as Councilman Alexander just said, your line's already short on there, so now we're transferring, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year, we're having to put money. So that's a legitimate concern.
Right, and she's indicating to me that we'll be fine on that, and that is because we have a lack of equipment fund money that this has to be transferred to that. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for the youth center.
I know that sometimes when different departments are submitting their budgets in, July, the potential for need may change between July and January. And that's, I guess, where the transfers come into play. So, I guess in my view, as long as it's a transfer just to make sure that the current need is paid out of the right lines, then we're okay. And then it's up to the council if a department comes, 3, 4, 10 months later in the year and asks for more money and something we transfer out of, it's up to us then to determine whether there's money to do that or not. And if not, to remind the department heads that they transferred out of that line, and so they might have to wait until next year for whatever that new need is. So, any other comments or questions?
I've got a comment, Mr. Vaughn. Your question, the operating supplies is almost $80,000 what they requested, or that's in their budget. Machinery and equipment was at zero, so they didn't request any in machinery and equipment. Also going back, a separate issue on the victim's advocate. Printing and advertising was at $720. There was no provision for rentals, so if Betsy can remember that next year, we'll probably forget.
We're during the budget time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm just kind of getting at, to shore it up a little bit.
It wasn't it was just a matter of not knowing which pocket it needed to come out of.
Okay. There are no other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That transfer is approved. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
I have raised an issue, if I may say something. I've asked for like 2 years for this spreadsheet of transfers, so that each of us could have an accounting of, at least especially this year, when we're likely, if it's starting out this way, we're going to probably have a lot of changes where we can see, just by looking through a spreadsheet, where these transfers previously came from, and if somebody a department head is requesting money out of, in this case, $80,000 sounds like a lot of money, so they were probably going to be fine with operating supplies, but if a department only had $25,000 and they were transferring out 15, and then 4 months later they come in with a $10,000 of requested new money back into that line item. We need to have some kind of way of tracking that.
Right.
And so, and it's hard for us from meeting to meeting to remember where these transfers were from. Is that a possibility, Rick? And I know that Todd.
Yeah.
That'd be
Maybe
nice.
if you-
That'd be
I don't know if
really
your
nice.
software could generate a transfer report or something. I don't know if it's
And new money.
geared to do that, but yeah. Okay. So the rest of the transfers are not general fund transfers. So I don't know if we want to address those en masse. Are we okay doing that, since they're just transferring from their own separate
I would
revenue
make
streams?
a motion to read all those transfers, remaining transfers, and vote on them
Okay.
collectively.
Okay. Then next would be emergency management, Tom Ecker, which is a transfer of $5,000 from professional services and other services and charges to, which adds $10,000 into machinery and equipment. So, Tom, if you'd like to address that.
I've got three of them. Which one did you?
talk about
The
first.
LEPC Right to Know Fund?
Right to know, that is not a general fund account. The right to know, which is funded through Tier 2 reports that companies file with the county, and that's the money we receive for those filing fees that the state pays us. This is a transfer because it's very hard to budget that little bit of money that we get. We get $5,000 a year. That was back in the 80s, we'd get $60,000, $70,000 a year because of Delco and all the other companies that were here. But now we're down to that, plus they took all the gas stations out, so they don't have to file anymore either, which really hurt. But this transfer was made because we had no way of budgeting. At the beginning of the year, I do, at your budget hearing, allocate this money. But we had no way to know this year that OSHA changed the rules. And short story is, if we have a hazmat incident and we have to suit up, our hazmat team suits up, 2 guys go in, 2 guys suit up as backup. OSHA changed that. 2 guys go in, 2 guys suit up for backup, suit up 2 more for backup for them. So now every time we have an incident, we have to use 6 suits that you cannot reuse. And they're very expensive. For this is for 2 more suits, so that we can meet the OSHA regulation. But again, this is not general fund money. And it's just, I threw a dart at the wall to see where we needed it at budget time that you guys approved. I had no way to know that we were going to buy equipment with that. Also note that this money is regulated by the IRC. They have to approve every expenditure out of this account, and they've approved this one. So that's the short
This is a
story.
transfer to cover you for something
It's
you weren't aware
transfer.
of at budget.
We did not anticipate spending equipment out of this budget.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that the request be received.
We have a motion by Councilman Reese and a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next transfer is Central Dispatch, Brent Jensen.
They got cans for that new money. It's all mixed up. It's all mixed up. Transfers, new money.
Good evening, council. The numbers on this transfer also hinge on the new appropriation, if we'd be able to possibly discuss both of those, because they're related to each other.
Okay.
Without one, there's not a reason for the other. We'd have to do some changing around. The transfer, there's some typos on there. Those are actually dispatcher slots, not professional services. So that's employee slots. What we came up with in December, we were promoting a new supervisor, and the way my predecessor had the system set up is the $4,160 a supervisor gets of salary per year was added to their individual line item. And what we've ran into is when supervisors left or resign or demote, and we put somebody new, we have to come to the council anyway for a transfer into the new person's line item. So working with the payroll department at the auditor's office, we found this supervisor fund, the 11206, that we would put all of the supervisor money for the 6 supervisors we have into that fund, and then Melissa would pay the $1 an hour or $2 an hour, depending on assistant or supervisor, to that person out of that fund in addition to their normal pay line. So that really eliminates a bunch of shell game moving money around in our fund. And it's something we came up with in December when we were doing a promotion, because in the past I'd have to come back for the next meeting after they were promoted, and then we'd have to pay back pay to them for possibly 2 months, depending on when their promotion hit as to when the next council schedule was. Can I explain the appropriation as well?
Yes.
As to how these tie together? So that covers half of my supervisor budget. The appropriation, we did this a couple of years ago when the county had a 3% raise. Central Dispatch wasn't included in the original budget, and that just happened again this time. It's partially my fault. I didn't catch it and didn't bring it up to the council at budget time. But this is just appropriating the 3% to the rest of these positions. And the reason it goes in point with that transfer is we only transferred enough out of those supervisor funds to bring their base pay down to the 3% level that the base pay would go up to, if that makes sense. So I know that's kind of confusing, but they're So like a supervisor was making $4,100 extra. The 3% raise for our base pay is $1,037, so we only transferred out enough to bring them down to the $1,037. So that's why at the bottom of this as well, there's that supervisor line with an additional $11,000. So that's how it all ties together. If that wasn't approved, then there's no reason for the transfer as well.
It says 17,738.53 cents.
Yes, that's the transfer. I'm sorry, I was looking at the new appropriation with the 11,000.
So,
So, I'm sorry.
okay, the 3% that we gave last year, your employees got that, right?
This is giving it to them now because it wasn't included in the original budget. And I missed that. That's partially my fault.
So,
But we did this a couple years ago too because it wasn't included because it wasn't a general fund.
so again, this is something that we cannot do without an ordinance.
Yeah,
Because
this is what I'm-
it's, even though it's missed, in your budget.
We have to amend that.
We would have to have an amended ordinance to pay it. So,
Is it in the salary ordinance, and we just forgot it in the budget?
And Ted's shaking his head, I
Yeah, so
think.
Ted, earlier you
You come up
explained
front,
this, that we could do an appropriation, but there would have to then be a retroactive ordinance.
If you were to go ahead and start paying them.
Right, right. But best practice would probably be to do the,
Best practice is to have the ordinance establishing the salary.
right.
And then you can appropriate at the same time. And you can do retroactive if necessary. If you need to start paying these people now, for whatever reason, it's possible to do retroactive salary ordinance next week.
So it makes my life a lot easier if we do it now, just because going back to do that back pay for the first of the year, there's overtime, vacation time, sick time, all that gets counted in there, and there's a lot of number crunching that goes on, a lot more room for error as well. But I understand whichever direction the council needs to go.
well, and another thing, you've got all these line items, and you're identifying them as professional services. So when we look at this ahead of the meeting, we're thinking you're transferring out of professional services and into a supervisor role, when in reality, you're transferring from an employee line item, and we're not even seeing that.
I'm not sure why.
Standard, that was my error, not,
Oh, okay,
Not Brooks.
okay, all right, good, well.
yes, I make a couple of those a year.
Yeah, okay.
I wanted to get it out of the way.
Right, right. Get it out of the way in January.
So to be safe, we probably need to do, Ted, just to be safe, you're the attorney. I mean, I hear what you said, but
Well, I mean, it's going to be the council's call whether they want to fund it right now and then retroactively establish the ordinance next year.
Mr. Gardner, can I speak to this? Yes. Listen, we do amendments to your salary ordinance all the time. Anytime you get these little sheets that I have you sign, that's because the month before, you made an adjustment to his salary via a transfer or an additional appropriation. So the council made the action. I went back to the office, made an amendment to the salary ordinance. It's dated for the month that you did the action, and I bring them in here for you to sign. We do these all the time. Anytime you adjust a salary item via a transfer or an additional appropriation, we have to have these. Otherwise, we don't pass our audit. It's not something new. We do it all the time. And you sign them all the time.
But we historically, looking back, we actually were very critical of the commissioners for appropriating money ahead of having established policies to do it. I mean, I
No,
would think-
that's incorrect. The problem we had there was they were spending money before they got an appropriation.
Right.
right.
We're the appropriating body. So if we appropriate the funds of
Isn't
this.
the ordinance the appropriation?
No.
The ordinance is not the appropriation.
Appropriation is an ordinance, yes, it's a fiscal ordinance, but there are two separate things here. The appropriation is the permission to spend money. It's the council saying, you can spend this money now, this much. The salary ordinance is setting the amount that each employee makes. But not authorizing payment.
So past
we still
practice
got-
has been that appropriations get made and then the auditor's office takes that as their queue to generate the ordinance, and then that comes back to the council. So, while this is nothing new, it's past practice, maybe not best practice. So perhaps that's something we can try to work on. However, I think that that would just mean those ordinance getting generated when we know that there's a request to make a change, which then if that change is not approved, that's just work the auditor's office is doing that kind of seems like a waste of time, but at least we're prepared at the meeting.
I understand why it's supposed to be done. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be better if we actually adopted it as an ordinance in the meeting. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
And also, just to alleviate any funding concerns, because I know that has been a talk about central dispatch, we did underspend by about $165,000 last year.
Great.
So there's enough carryover to cover that for this upcoming year without affecting our bottom line for the upcoming year.
Okay. Thank you.
So that 100, when we met Brent, the 145, that's taken care of. You no longer have that issue
For this year, correct? Yeah.
for this year.
Much like the sheriff, I guess they call it the Great Resignation, really affected us as well, just like every other industry in the nation right now. And we did not spend nearly as much on payroll line items. We also reduced our overtime by, I don't remember the exact number, I want to say about 10% over the year prior. So we were able to cut down some costs with that as well.
How's your
So-
user fee formula going?
Another meeting about that tomorrow. Not a board meeting, but a meeting with attorneys tomorrow to.
Is that getting better? Where you getting to it? Where
Our first board meeting of the year is going to be next week.
Okay.
So, but the plan is to get that done this spring, yes.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Rick, did you have something?
Yeah, I want to get kind of a clarification. In handling those salary ordinance, I don't disagree with Ted's analysis of it, but people have to be prepared to ask for the money this month, approve the salary ordinance next month, and then you start getting paid. Or you can't, I cannot know coming into a meeting that you're going to approve all these, or a salary ordinance is actually suggesting that you approve all these. These are your guys' suggestions. So you appropriate the money, then you allot that money to whoever you're going to pay it through a salary ordinance. So it's really a two-step process. Would you disagree with that? So be prepared, and department heads should be prepared, and don't tell you, well, I'm going to the council tonight and getting you a raise or an adjustment, because that's 2 months down the road. So if you do that, and you raise that pay and you vote on it tonight, then we'll know what you approved. I'm exaggerating probably a little bit, but there's 50, 60 salary adjustments at least. No, within the whole, no, not within yours.
Not all mine.
So, but I don't know if you're going to do one of them, all of them, 10 of them, or what. So it's impossible for me to have a salary ordinance today unless it's one item, or, it's usually not this many. So just to be clear, but it's really a two-step process. Appropriate the money, and then
amend it.
the salary ordinance that says Johnny can make $100 more this year.
Right.
I mean,
Because it's still
really
gotta be
as simple
amended
as that.
through-
But you can't have department heads, and no criticism to them, but knocking at the door saying, I told Johnny he's going to get paid today. Well, that's kind of too bad. Don't tell him that. So, it's just a process. The state requires many, many processes through. This is just one minor little process that we have to go through to pass audits, hundreds of thousands of transactions, payments of claims, appropriation requests, all that. There's processes go, and the process doesn't change just because somebody wants it to. So, is that fair? Yeah. Okay. So a two-step process is the best way,
Right.
if we're not going to do the retroactive.
And on the topic of the salary ordinance, Ted and I did have a conversation today just to make the council aware that it may be possible that we could reformat the salary ordinance to make it more efficient, to make it such that, you don't have to have a separate line for every individual employee. You could group them, dispatch employees, this amount of money. So that may alleviate some of the amount of work that would go into preparing the salary ordinances if we can get that cleaned up over the next few months.
Talked about
So,
ranges or
Yeah.
rates
yeah.
from $9 to $12 for this position.
Right.
And then the supervisor would then set that.
Correct. They have a
Yeah.
budget, and hey, based on this hourly range, I can hire two people, or I can hire three people.
Chad, can I ask you a question real quick on that? No matter if it's a transfer or you're giving a raise to an employee out of transfer to your own budget, no matter if it's new money, if you're once we set that in the budget, the salary, we have to approve and amend, and it has to come in front of the council no matter what, correct? And I understand this is a transfer, I get that, but any time that you change anything, the council's got to approve that.
So if your question is, can you adjust any individual's salary, whether it's through new money or through transfer without approval?
Or discretionary funds or whatever. Anytime we change any
That's
salary,
where the money comes
right.
from, because the council sets the salaries of the officers and employees.
Right.
By salary, through the salary ordinance. Whatever the case may be, whoever the make the yes, you have to consider.
What if they don't? What happens? What's the repercussions if we don't amend it?
Well, when we get audited, I suppose
That's why everybody act around here like it doesn't gonna happen anyway,
they flag us, they make a report that says we didn't follow the procedures.
but really nothing, huh?
Slap on the hand.
Depends on what seat you're sitting in. If you're sitting in Rick's seat, that's, yeah. So,
Lose hair, huh?
yeah. Okay. In regards to this transfer and new money request then, to try to get us back onto this, are there any other questions? Is there a motion? Is there any action we want to take on this tonight?
Sorry, one more question. Councilman Gal. These are, so this is going to money that and I know you kind of went some difficulties with retaining dispatchers and stuff, and I don't want to, look, them guys go through some, and I was concerned because they didn't get hazard pay, and so this transfer is going to make them a little more probably happier? Or maybe
That's true.
some will stay?
And this is nothing more than what every other general fund county employee got.
3% raise, right?
Yeah.
Right.
This particular one wasn't an oversight. I mean, we looked at general fund and public safety fund, employees being paid out of those, put in the 3% raise when we created the budget, and missed that central dispatch was paying out of a different fund. So we addressed the bulk of the employees, but they were missed, unfortunately.
So we're good to go ahead and, we wanted to approve these, and then that triggers you then to get a salary ordinance per his direction
Next month.
for the next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Okay.
I make a motion that the request be received.
Second.
And just to clarify your motion, Councilman Reese, is that to approve the transfer and the new money request? He presented both of those. And he explained that one without the other doesn't really work.
Have a two-step, you kind of go. hand
Yeah, I
in
want to do
hand.
both.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we were all clear on what that was.
Thank you, Fred.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so Councilman Reese made the motion, and Councilman Vaughn, you made the second. Okay, is there any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Just for clarification, does this take effect on their salaries now, or we'll have to wait one more month?
Sounds like we'll have to wait one more month.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay.
Tell them it's your fault.
Yeah, I will own up to it 100%.
No emails.
Next transfer.
Appreciate it.
Brant, did your employees get the hazardous pay with the CARES Act funding?
No, they did not.
Okay.
Next transfer then, just so we can keep things moving along, Health Department, Stephanie Mellinger.
Mr. Gale?
Yes.
The second one, okay.
Oh, go ahead. All right. Good evening, Steph Mellinger, Health Department. My first transfer is I'm one of the forgotten 3%. So that's what mine is for the health fund. It's not general fund, it's health fund.
Right. So that's the Health Fund 1159. Do you want to go ahead and explain the Health Maintenance Fund as well? Is that
Sure.
different?
The health maintenance fund, that transfer is for a line that was added after budgets were submitted, but that line was approved later, but it needs to be, that whole grant has been approved. The budget was approved for that, and that is health maintenance. That grant is $358,000, so there's money in there to do that transfer within that budget.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
What you do with all this money you be getting? Girl, you got more money coming than I do.
She leads the battle against COVID in our county. That's what she does with it all.
Need to get your husband some. So he quit begging up here. Okay, I make a motion that we accept the
Okay.
both.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Reese,
I'll second
a
it.
second by Councilman Alexander. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I believe that takes care of all of the transfers, unless I missed one. So now we're to our favorite part of the night, new money. We'll start with miscellaneous funds. The clerk, Olivia Pratt.
Good evening. I am looking to move $20,000 out of my perpetuation fund into the part-time line item within that fund. I've got 2 part-time employees who are doing nothing but scanning at the moment. We're working with the courts kind of on a project. They paid for them at the end of the year last year, but now I need to bring them in under my budget, so I would like to move that money if possible.
Okay. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that this request be received, and we're sorry to lose you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Reese,
I'll second.
a second by Councilman Steele. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Steve Richardson here? Okay, we have a new money request, local drug-free communities fund. Is there anyone here to speak on that? Maybe they didn't know that they needed to.
Which one's that?
Is this an actual grant?
Anyone with any knowledge?
I believe that's, Rick, do you know, is this local drug-free communities fund 1148, is that a grant fund? Todd says yes. Okay.
Then we could,
So,
yeah.
Salaries, I believe. Is that for salary, the professional service, doesn't he get paid out of professional services? It's something that comes every January to appropriate for the spending.
okay, thank you. Okay, is there a motion?
I make a motion to
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Alexander, second by Councilman Reese. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes, thank you. New money, Sheriff Mellinger.
Thank you. Just requesting that $8,400 be appropriated into the sex offender, violent offender fund. Those are fees that are collected by state statute for those persons who reach that status, and they pay those fees in, and then each sheriff's office across the state is responsible for checking on those people. That's part of the fees pays for the maintenance of that program.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. What is the actual money, the use of the money? I mean, I'm reading, even CNN producers now are being arrested for child molestation, and I mean, it's just rampant. It's unbelievable. Is this money used to stop, to deter this kind of thing, or investigate these processes, or whatever?
Well, we use this money, and I think most sheriffs across the state do, sometimes to pay for equipment that the deputies use in a regular part of their day. when, some of the operating supply and machinery budget lines we have, they only pay for so much. And whether it be firearms or training, dealing with sex offenders and violent offenders, it's a miscellaneous, it's a variety of things that we pay for. We pay for anything that will fit into deputies checking on those violent or sex offenders. And each one of our deputies has, I think, roughly 15 sex offenders that they check on 4 times a year. And it's part of their regular 8-hour day, but they need equipment to do their job safely. It's not any special equipment. Now, some of it does go into training for our administrator, because that whole system changes once or twice a year from the state, from the Department of Corrections, on who is a sex offender and who isn't, as far as if there's a statute change. So it's ever changing. So training and equipment, it's just maintenance of the program, whatever it takes to run the program. I wish some amount of money would stop that activity, but we're working strictly from the back end, after they've been adjudicated, and then we check on them for years.
Sheriff, how long has this been? Is this every year?
Every year we have to appropriate this dedicated fund. We have about 7 dedicated funds that we collect for fees from various different, and I can explain those to you sometime when we have more time, but this is only one of those 7 funds. It's not general fund, it's strictly fees that are collected.
So from fees and...
The sex offenders and the violent offenders, they have to pay a fee to, they have to go to the sheriff's office of the county where they live, and they pay an administrative fee to make any changes to their status if they move from one address to another. And that's part of the deputy's job, is they go out and check to make sure they're living where they say they're living, and every once in a while they're living in a place that's too close to a school or too close to daycare.
I'm sure that's increased, right? Pretty busy?
Oh, very, very much so, yeah. I think
it kind of protects the public from, you keep track of them.
We have, I believe, around 340 people in our county designated as either sex offenders that have to be in the program or violent offenders.
They're probably rising.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I think we have the motion and a second.
Oh, did we already have a motion and a second?
No, I don't think we did.
I think Fred made the motion.
Oh, did you?
Okay, Fred made the motion.
Who made the second?
Okay, thank you. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next new money request that was on the agenda was Central Dispatch, but we handled that a little bit ago.
Now we're into...
Emergency Management, Tom Ecker.
I have 2 of them before you. Both of these are grants. They're not general fund money, so this is just allocating the grant so we can spend it. The grants are very specific what they're for. The first one is a cybersecurity grant we got for IT department. Part of that's paying the no before that we're all going through, and part of it is for some network firewall stuff upgrade.
This for IT or you?
IT.
IT department?
I got it for IT.
Well, you got it for IT, but
Yes.
it goes to IT department.
It goes to IT. They're spending the money.
Okay.
And then,
Well, they're making the bills, and I'm processing the bills.
okay, do you want to explain the second one?
The second one is another grant that we obtained. This is for some equipment upgrade in our Emergency Operations Center.
Are there any questions? Not? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that the request be received.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Reese, second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
That's for both of them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next, new money is Health Department again, Stephanie Mellinger.
Okay, here we go. All of mine are grants. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grants here. The first one is the trust account, which actually looks like the 3% for one of our employees, that 3% increase. There's about $300 and some thousand in that account, so it's there. But it just needs to be acknowledged for that 3%. I'll just go through them. The next one is the mass vaccination fund. It's for $194,977.66. The COVID testing fund, $152,089.43. Safety compliance fund, $444,000. And then our health fund non-reverting, $192,489.74.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I got a question. What you do with the non-diverting? What do you do with that?
Well, we're working on building the barn for our mobile unit.
I'm telling you, man, we need to get with this lady.
Yeah.
She got so much money.
I know it, that's what I'm saying.
Does a great job in
Thank
securing
you.
grants.
Grants.
I heard, but they give her a lot.
Can you give a class to,
When I have time, I'd
Yeah,
love
with
to
all
do
her
that.
spare time, I'm sure.
I make a motion, we approve this request.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman
Second.
Alexander, a second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie, I do have a question. Can you,
Oh, yeah, 11 to 1.
Stephanie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you update us on the availability of testing equipment in Madison County? I know we're hearing all over the country that there's a shortage, and can you give us some sort of an update on?
Sure. Right now, we have plenty of PCR testing supplies, so that's supposed to be 48-hour test results. However, because of the influx in testing and cases, it's now, honestly, with our state lab, it's more like 4 to 5 days, which is not helpful, but that's just where we are. The state's looking for other options to increase that turnaround time, or decrease that turnaround time, rather. Rapid test kits were in high demand. They still are. However, as a state-supported site, we have to follow the state guidelines on using the rapid test kits now, which is under 18 and over the age of 50 if symptomatic. So anyone 19 to 49 cannot get a rapid test from a state-supported site. They are available at stores if you can find them. However, what I will say about them is be careful, because right now 85% of the cases sequenced in Indiana are Omicron. There is a reduced sensitivity in the rapid test kits, which are the same ones that are sold at the stores, the same ones that we have at the health department. So I would just caution that if you are symptomatic and you receive a rapid test that's negative, get tested by PCR for confirmation. But right now, PCR tests are fine. We can accommodate walk-ins with our normal testing hours, which Monday all day till 6, Tuesday till 3, Wednesday till 3-ish, Thursday till 6, Friday till 3, Saturday 8 to 12.
Did you say that test was a high percentage of inaccurate?
False negative,
False negatives?
Particularly with Omicron, yes.
Right. And typically, how long does a person normally sick with the Omicron virus? Is it like what you're hearing on the news, 3 or 4 days, and they're kind of okay? Or
Yeah.
The CDC reduced the
Quarantine and isolation time,
days. And are we recommending that locally? Because I've had some people that still think they're supposed to be in quarantine for 14 days. Is there a way to since the CDC has made that suggestion, are we still forcing 14 days, or is it 5 days?
No, it's 5. And so I try to provide somewhat regular updates to all county employees. So I thought that you were on that list for my updates. I just sent another one out today. Do you get that? Okay. So, and it talks about that quarantine and isolation of 5-day period, and then masking for the additional 5 days, up to 10 days. So
Maybe the paper could maybe do a story on that the CDC guidelines have changed, because several people that go to church where I go to church, they think that they have to be quarantined for 14 days, and the public doesn't know that.
I believe it's been in the paper.
Has it? Okay.
Some people don't read the
Maybe
paper.
change by
so-
next Monday,
Okay.
too.
Well, we still have quite a few items to get through, so thank you very much, Stephanie.
sure, anybody
Appreciate
has
it.
any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help out with that.
All right, thank you. Next new money is a general fund request from Sheriff Mellinger. Perhaps in the future, we should try to group these based on individual with transfers and new money
took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. We're just asking for $1,500 out of the general fund because we deposited a check in December for a vehicle that we traded in to DeVos Chevrolet. The vehicle we were picking up wasn't in yet, so instead of just knocking off the price, they had to cut us a check for $1,500. We did deposit it in the general fund. We're just asking for it in Sheriff 440, where we pay for our vehicles.
This is for a new vehicle you guys purchased?
No, this is trade-in. We traded an old
What
car
did you
in, and
trade
they
in?
cut
What
us
did
a
you get, like
check.
for a patrol officer?
No, this one was for one of the victim advocates.
Okay.
We actually purchased a used vehicle.
I make a motion to approve this request.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Alexander and a second by Councilwoman Likens. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you. Jim Hunter, new money. Judges?
I can do this one as well. Again, Steve Coaster.
Here, he's behind you.
I'm sorry?
He's behind you.
That's okay.
Oh, you're gonna do it, okay.
He can fill in for me if I get something wrong here. But I'm the chief judge for 2022, so you'll be seeing a lot of me. Hopefully not too much. But the first request that we have, and these are requests that we've listed under the general fund and under the public safety fund. The first one is for the riding bailiff. If you recall, last year we eliminated one in order to give us a supervising court reporter. And I know Councilman Reese came around and talked to all of us, and weren't looking to do that, but we were denied the money for the court reporter. So that was our response, so we could have a supervisor in that particular area. So Councilman Reese, I know, has indicated that there should be money available now for that bailiff, so we don't lose a position. So that's the first request that we have under the general fund is for the riding bailiff. And then the second request under, obviously there's a bunch of different things listed on here, is Judge Hoppy last year under the budget had requested a 7% raise for our court reporters. That was denied, but now we're requesting under either the general fund or the public safety fund for that extra, because they got the 3% raise that all the county employees got. We're requesting the extra 4% now to bring those up to 7% for the court reporters and the other court administrative staff.
So what fund did you judge that you requested out of? We got out of the one, the public safety fund or just general fund?
Well, we requested out of both, so then that would give an option that it could come out of either one.
There were, I believe, a few departments that did that, and it was the question of where would the money actually come from? Would there be, with the new public safety money available, would there be shifting of where certain things were paid from to cover some general fund items under public safety now, which then these raises, in theory, would be able to come out of the general fund in that case, but if that wasn't done, then those raises could potentially come out of the public safety fund. So to meet the advertising requirements, they submitted both, so that both could be, yeah, we could choose either way to do that. Todd, did we get the, for the riding bailiff, did we get the amendment to the salary ordinance prepared today for that one? Okay, I had spoken to Rick a little bit about that, but I wasn't sure if that got done or not, so.
Is that gonna affect her from not working until we do it, so she's okay? Or?
Well, again, we go back to, do we continue with some of past practice for a situation like this where they're trying to be able to keep the employee, knowing that we need to change to best practice?
I mean, is she still working though, right?
Yes, I believe she is, yes, yes. Yeah. So again, as we're changing the process on that or attempting to, we can continue with, operating under past practice in cases where that's necessary to do so. And this one likely would be one of those cases, so.
Mr. President? Or you got any more questions?
Go ahead, Coach.
Okay. In regards to the riding bailiff position, I may like to make a request. It's okay if I make a request that we approve this expenditure for this court riding bailiff and the stipend as well, of $32,000 and $12,000.
Is that a motion?
Second.
That's a motion.
So we have a motion by Councilman Reese and a second by Councilman Vaughn. Is there any discussion?
Question?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what fund you're making that motion out of?
I'm coming out of the general fund on this one. On the,
Oh, that's right, we got to say, because it's at the
I'm sorry, I forgot about that one, general fund.
general fund.
Yeah. Thank you, Todd, for that clarification. Is there any discussion?
Question, if I may, President Gill. Judge, the $12,000 stipend, what was that for?
I'm sorry?
The $12,000 stipend, what was that for?
Every
That is
bailiff
the,
gets that.
Monthly,
That is the vehicle maintenance,
Yeah.
various things. They use their own vehicle.
Okay.
So-
$1,000
Yeah,
a
I
month.
just
I
wanted
believe that's for
clarification.
every bailiff, right? It's
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
like
they
that
all
for years.
have-
Okay.
They each get that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Is this the same person? May I ask? So this was the same person that the position was eliminated?
Correct.
And is now the same person?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. There's no more discussion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
So that covers the writing bailiff. All of these other raises,
You're coming for personnel?
yeah, that in theory should go.
These already,
Did those go through?
the 7%
personnel?
raise, all of those went through Personnel Committee already.
Okay.
Was approved to be discussed during budget time. Then what happened during budget time, we thought we would delay that until the public safety tax passed. Once it got defeated by the county council here, we thought it was a dead issue. Then we found out there was another avenue to get it passed through the city council, which it did, at which time the council had said if it passed through the city council, that's when we'd bring it back and discuss the additional 4% for those folks. So this has already been to Personnel Committee. It was approved unanimously by Personnel Committee for consideration by the full council, and again, that's kind of how that played out. So we would not want to take this back before Personnel Committee again. We'd just be redundant in doing that.
Well, shouldn't there be some conversation about, I mean, if we start approving, like Rick was already telling us, if we approve all of these requests for raises, we are overspending the .15 public safety tax by over $200,000.
And with
So
the-
how do we do that?
Well, I met with Rick yesterday, I believe it was. We discussed a lot of this. In all of the requests for new money from public safety from that $1.5 million chunk, there are some new salaries, there are some raises to try to be able to retain employees and lessen the turnover. Then there were some one-time expenses. We were able to evaluate the new employees and the impact that would have, but it became a bit overwhelming in the amount of time that we had to meet to really take a deep look into all of the raises and then the one-time expenses.
Yeah.
And so I might suggest that some of these mass raises of these departments, it might be wise for the council and the auditor's office to have a little bit more time to work through that. So it might be appropriate to table some of those raises, because in my mind, that's not a no, it's that we have to make sure that we don't approve something that is going to put us into a deficit in that fund and then jeopardize the remaining amount of money that's coming into that we need to hold for the bonds. So like I say, we were able to evaluate the new positions that were requested and kind of figure out some what that impact would be, but we just simply weren't able to get through all of the raises and see what impact that would have.
Councilman Gett, you also said that they split, they asked from both, general fund
Right.
and public. So
Right.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we table all requests of public safety in the general fund and make a motion that we table it.
For the remainder of the judge's portion.
Every request from the public safety fund right now, until we kind of go through things, like you said, have some time. And also, I think pretty much what we got left is from, they kind of, well, I don't know how you want to do it, because they've done it from both.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, and that's one of the issues with the raises that we discussed, is, if an employee is currently paid out of the general fund, do we try to free up some money in the general fund to give them a raise out of the general fund? Vice versa, if they're paid out of the public safety fund, do we bring that from the public safety to create, less of a mess or confusion in payroll?
Right.
But like I say, some of the new positions that have been requested, that we were able to actually evaluate and verify numbers and things like that. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this where we have to verify that, there's not a typo on here, and we approve something that inadvertently doesn't account for FICA or, some increased payroll tax.
We're already $200,000 over, so I don't, has your motion been seconded?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that we should look at, when I attended all these meetings as a member of the council, and also I attended a couple of the cities and I heard the phrase, well, this money is to put boots on the ground and not get new boots necessarily. We really do need boots on the ground. And so I think we should deal with the new employees and then consider raises. Because when we're spending all of the appropriation for raises, what are we doing about public safety? We're just giving more people more money. And that was my fear when we were debating this on the council, was we were creating a situation where we're just going to give raises, and the effectiveness of public safety, I'm not sure that, and it, a person does more when they feel like they're getting paid appropriately. But I question, we're going to spend all this money and we don't even have any, we're not even adding boots on the ground. We're not adding new people. And so I think we should deal with the new people and then think in terms of how do we satisfy raises, and then within the limits of doing an effective job in public safety.
Yeah, and I think that the counter argument with the raises, and I'm not suggesting necessarily we take action on that tonight. The counter argument might be that when the boots are walking out the door because they can make a lot more elsewhere, and they're constantly retraining new employees. Employees are hard to find right now. We've been going through that at my business as well. So we do need to be. I think oftentimes there's a view of government employees that any kind of a pay increase is somehow unjustified, and we have to be careful because, again, one of the things that I have observed in my short time on the council is that most of our employees until this year have gone for a significant amount of time without any raise. And so we just have to be careful to evaluate that. The other thing that Rick and I talked about was it's one thing to know that we'll have $1.5 million coming in this year, but when that's paid out monthly, it's a different situation if we had $1.5 million deposited this month versus $125,000 every month. So we have to make sure that not only do we have the money, but that we are spending it in a manner where we can cash flow those expenses as well. And so a lot of the big, large one-time expense items that are part of that, we'll have to allow money to accrue from that to be able to spend the money on that. So,
Councilman Gale.
So, yeah,
if I could address that real briefly, and I won't spend a lot of time. You guys have to do what you have to do, but our boots are leaving in droves. Yeah. We lost 7 court reporters. We don't have that many. We lost 7, and the importance of that, I cannot reiterate enough as a new judge of how important these court reporters are and the accuracy of what they do and the knowledge that they have, the specialty that they have to do that job, and we are losing them in droves. And I lost one because she made more money selling cups on Facebook.
Right.
So I understand your concern, but when the boots are walking out the door and we have to have those specialty type of people, and to train them, it takes time and money. And if we don't get good people coming in to fill those positions, then the accuracy of what we do is hurt tremendously, so.
You know, in any organization, constant turnover is an expense. I mean, it makes things a lot more expensive over time.
Part of the reason that we made the move on the bailiff and reduced one is because we could not afford to lose another person who had 25 or 30 years of experience in those jobs, because those are the people that train the new people to do it.
Right.
And we had people, you know, go sell mortgages and do all kinds of other things where they could make more money. It's a hard job. They take a lot of pride in it, but at some point they go, you know what? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And to tie onto that, I know that I've had meetings with the prosecutor's office, and they've got folks with trial experience that they need for these felony cases that are going before us that we seem to have. We've seen the numbers; they're off the charts for per capita in our county for some reason on the felony trials that we've got coming up, and they've got people walking out the door every. How many now? 9? 9 this year that's walked out the door for higher pay. And again, what they're offering for those folks to walk in day one, I mean, it's really sad when you look at what those folks are getting paid as a deputy prosecutor coming in here. So basically all they're doing is getting new people right out of law school to come in. And I don't think that's the folks we want going in and doing our felony cases in the courts. Because I can tell you right now, these defendants aren't hiring brand new folks out of law school. They're hiring the best attorney that they can afford to come in there and defend them. And I know I see the prosecutor jumping up.
Sorry, Judge.
No, you're fine.
Rodney Cummings.
Don't go far, Judge. I got a question for you.
I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, 9 so far this year. We have, I had Bernie Carter scheduled to come in tonight, who's the prosecutor in Lake County, which is Gary, East Chicago. Every time I hear you don't compare us to Hamilton County, okay, compare us to one of the other 2 most miserable cities in Indiana and the most miserable cities in America. They are number 1, we're number 15 on most of the rankings. He's got 54 prosecutors in that community. 11 make over $100,000 a year, with a tax base that's, I'm telling you, their tax base in Gary is not worse than ours, and we're paying our people $66,000. Now that's why we fought this whole year to get this money, because we have one of the toughest criminal justice landscapes in this state. We're 3rd again this year, so that'll be 10 of the last 11 years, 3rd in sending people to prison. That's the kind of problems that we're having in this community, and we just need your help. And that was the whole debate that we had all last year about getting this money. And all I heard from every other legislative body is, yes, crime is the worst problem we have. The reason why it passed the Anderson City Council, which was a surprise to us, is because every one of those people know crime in Anderson is the worst problem we have in this community, and we need help. And when a community like Gary devotes that kind of money to their prosecutor's office, if we get this raise, we're still going to be the lowest funded prosecutor's office in the state. We just need some help. Now, we have people lined up to come to work here. We've picked off, 5 out of Marion County now?
4 to 5.
Yeah, top experienced people that are ready to come here because we got this public safety tax. Raises, I can hear what you're saying, but if there isn't a vote taken on this today, we're going to be in serious problem about the new people we need to hire. Raises, I can understand. I think there is some issue about the money and how much is being expended. We need you to take some action tonight on the new positions.
Right.
Raises, our people need them just like they do, but if you need time to discuss that, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I think there is some of the money that's being overspended, and this council is going to have to decide where those cuts are made, to be honest with you. I think that's what is happening here.
Rodney, I agree with you. That's what I was saying. I think that we should pay for the new hires, and maybe we give a 2% raise across the board, and then we can pay everybody a raise that needs it or that's requesting. But if we don't have the money, how are we going to do it?
We have to make some decision about where it's at. But
yeah.
My paralegals are in the same place the courts are. They're leaving, man. They're walking out of there. You're talking about some of them are making $30,000 or less. You can't live on that kind of money. Mm-hmm. And we're not asking for huge raises, but we're just asking to pay people a decent wage that'll keep them in the door a little longer.
Right.
What would that raise be? What would that, I mean, I'm
I
just,
think we have
I'm just curious-
37,000.
I'm just curious what that raise
We're
would
asking
be.
for, we're asking for $37,000, $37,000 a year, Mr. Reese, $37,000.
You're adding 37,000?
No, that's the total line, isn't it?
So are you talking about the raises for the
Right,
deputy
right. You're
prosecutors?
saying,
No,
so
you're
we
talking
have,
about the civilian employees.
I'm hearing 66,000. You're
Yeah.
I'm hearing you walking out the door with 66,000.
right, we
So
would
what
go
kind of money
to
are
a
we looking at?
four-tier system that we talked about. We've been talking
We have
about
a
this
handout for every one if you
Yeah,
want to see it.
just go ahead. Sorry, Judge Custer.
And
I guess
let me
we're
add-
standing here now.
Let me add this.
And-
Oh, wait,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
go-
You go,
go.
you go.
Just,
Well, hold on, I'm sorry.
we're getting a little out of order here, but at the same time, a lot of these things are all very much connected.
Yes.
My suggestion is that since these were listed under general fund and public safety fund, we have a budget for our general fund. We do not have an additional source of revenue that we didn't have for the general fund when we passed that budget. We do have an additional source of revenue for public safety now, and we have about $1.5 million for that. So the agenda has us addressing each of these different departments under the general fund request and public safety fund request. My suggestion would be that we strike the general fund portion of that. We have this discussion regarding these requests coming from the public safety fund, since there is money there to take it from, and there's not currently additional money in the general fund to do that. So I guess I'm asking the council, is there any objection to skipping the general fund part of the agenda, just so that we all know what we're talking about and where it'd be coming from, and just moving to the public safety fund portion of the agenda?
Well, can we entertain a motion to do what I've proposed, that we, on those full-time positions that are being requested in these departments, go ahead and appropriate the funding for those individuals. Then the raises, let's kick that back and reevaluate those raises so that we can give people raises, but we don't want to
The only problem with that is we do have, if we approve the new positions, we're going to have new deputy prosecutors walking in the door making more than our prosecutors that's been here for 10, 15, 20 years.
There's a couple problems with that. It's okay. One being we've talked this entire year about our supplemental fund issues. Once again, the Anderson City Court and the Elwood City Court, which are where a majority of our diversions come from, are closed because of COVID. This is what got us in this issue before. We've been working on this for a year. You gave us enough supplemental money to supplement the salaries to the raises, to the rates that we're paying them out of what is partially the $66,000, which is what an entry-level prosecutor would make. And I think our top prosecutor last year made something like $83,000 or something with some supplemental money from our accounts. Now, now we're in January, so the money that you gave us before has ran out. We are now drawing on our supplemental money from those accounts again, and the money is not coming in to the supplemental accounts because the courts are closed. So it's a package problem. Like, for instance, we're asking the council tonight for 2 new investigators, one of which being the educational neglect. We've talked about this several times now, one being an additional field investigator. Those would come in at $55,000. They're people with 30, 40 years of police experience. That's how we've been able to attract anybody to take those jobs. And we have our investigators in our office, one of which, for instance, has been there over 10 years, as a 40-year veteran, former assistant chief of the Anderson Police Department, being paid by this council something like $39,000 a year as an investigator. It's absurd. And we have to fix those things at the same time. Also, with adding the additional prosecutors, you're right, it would be adding it at a different level than what our base pay for our deputy prosecutors is.
One thing I would add is, we've spent, since 2013, our office has spent $1,750,000 of our discretionary monies, not tax money, to support this office.
Right.
And we can continue to do it a little while. I mean, we're going to be running thin on that money. We got a little coming in February's down in Anderson City Court, March they're closing because of computer change. That's going to cost a lot. Our monies are going to stop coming in. We can do it. We can supplement that maybe for another month or maybe a month and a half, but we need some action probably next month at the latest if we're going to do this.
Well,
I have a quick.
The council could, as Councilman Alexander mentioned, separate this and address the new positions. There are new positions requested in 3 different departments, and then also address the deputy prosecutor raises separately, or within one motion. And the investigator, to deal with the discretionary fund issue and to deal with the,
Well, then we
shifting
would
of-
also have to add people on the public defender, because you can't have more
Well,
prosecutors than you have public
They're new
that's
defenders.
part of the new
Okay,
positions
so-
requested.
So basically, I'll make that motion that we handle this by covering the existing prosecutors by elevating their salary based on the request that's been given, and that we appropriate the funds out of the public safety to pay for the prosecutor's office's request for those individuals. Did the judges have any full-time people that they needed to add on you guys' request?
No, our only request.
Okay, so yours was just a request primary from this point on raises, and we'll have to reevaluate those. That would be my motion.
Okay. And so we do have a motion, just to clarify,
Didn't I already
that
make a
covers
motion
the
before?
prosecutor's new positions. There were new positions for the public defenders and 1 new road deputy position for the sheriff's department. So
Correct.
didn't know if you wanted to add all those into your motion or
I
just.
do.
I have a
think that-
motion on the floor, Councilman Gale.
but
There was no second. It died due to lack of second.
It did?
Yeah, there was no second. So,
See, he said, when did I make it? I don't think because I got kind of interrupted in the middle of then we started discussing a lot. So,
just to be
Just-
honest about it, I did ask you if you got a second, and you said no whenever I made my conversation. So I make that motion, and if anybody else agree?
Can you clarify?
Yeah, so we want to clarify the, correct me if I'm not accurate here, but you would be adding the new merit officer
Correct.
from the sheriff's department.
That's correct.
You would be approving the 2 deputy prosecutors, 2 investigators in the prosecutor's office. You would be approving the raises for the current prosecutors and the investigators.
Correct. If they have to be, if they have to be the same,
And then you would be, your motion then would also cover the 4 new employees of the public defender.
correct.
Okay. Is that enough clarification, Rick?
Well, you're using the word prosecutor, but does that include these other people that are also in that, or?
The investigator.
There were 2 investigators and 2 prosecutors.
Well, 2 investigators plus the raises for.
Right, but you also have legal secretaries, receptionists, all that.
Yeah.
I think those are the ones the raises are going to evaluate.
Yeah, right,
Identify the line
Identified
items.
as a-
We're going to have to identify the line items.
right.
Investigator.
So
That's what I'm thinking.
that would be
How
line
much money
item,
is that total, which you guys ended up figuring? I want to know how much the bottom line we're appropriating.
that would be line item 13914 for the sheriff's department. Looks like 11,723 in the prosecutor's budget. So on our packets, there's not a line item for the field investigator and the 2 additional deputy prosecutors. It just says
Yep.
000.
And that's-
Yeah, so it'd be assigned a number.
I can provide you all the numbers for that specific request.
Okay.
The raises for the deputy prosecutors, the investigators, and then appropriating for the new positions. So for the new employees, that's 4 total. The total for that would be 346,985. And then the monthly draw for the public safety fund would be 31,544. And then for the raises for just the deputy prosecutors and investigators would be the total 203,952. And then monthly, that would be 18,541.
Okay, so we do have a motion. Did we get to the point of clarity on the motion?
And Anthony needed a second.
Okay, Anthony, did you make a second? Yes. Okay, so we have well, 5 lines for the new employees, and then there were, I believe, 4 lines for the raises. Sorry, I'm in the prosecutor's office. Well, there'd be more than 4 lines because that was raises for the current deputy prosecutors and raises for the current investigators.
What about this 11023? I don't know what that position is. I watch SVU on TV all the time, but I don't think that.
It's a sexual assault violence prosecutor.
Okay, so that's a prosecutor
Yes.
also. So
Okay.
we're counting that. I'm asking a question. I'm not trying to tell you guys to do anything. So are we talking about 11023, 11301? Is that included?
Yeah, the raises for the deputies and the new.
11310, is that included? 11405, is that
No,
included?
not the chief office administrator, but the investigator, 11405.
Okay, no on that one. Okay, the 18810 is included, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, deputy prosecutor, legal secretary, is that in or out?
No.
That's out.
Yeah, right.
Okay, 11612 is in. Investigator, 11706 is in.
Yes.
The new 11723 is in for sure. 11903 is in.
Yes.
12601 is in.
Yes.
Nothing else on that page.
Right.
The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 prosecutors are in.
Yes.
There's a Z, that one has no figure on it, on the 6th one. Then you have the new field investigator, the new deputy prosecutor,
Right.
and then we'll need that, I don't know what percentage of that FICA and perf, but it's not gonna hurt. If you approve that, you're not gonna spend that all at once, so we probably need both of those. It would be a lower amount, but you're only gonna pay what you spend anyway.
Right.
In those two, and then if you're going with, is the group insurance just for the 5 new ones?
Yes.
So you would need that line, and that's it.
And then the public defender's budget would have to be included as well. Mr. Williams, would you like to speak to why? It's always helpful, I think. There is a ratio that we have to meet if we add prosecutors.
Yes.
Yeah.
First, I'd like to say, if Rodney would have told me that the agenda didn't matter, I would have come down here about an hour and a half ago. I would have been done about 6:15. We've met, the prosecutors and I and the judges have met and gone through all of this and talked about the numbers, and that's how I came up with 3 public defenders, should keep us, 3 new public defenders should keep us in compliance, and 1 investigator. And then that's what I wanted to come down and say is, remember, when you're looking at the total number for public defenders, as long as we're in compliance, 40% of that's getting reimbursed by the state.
Right.
So just.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I just have one question, since I have all you guys out here. I asked a question a while back. What was the number 1 crime to come before the courts? And all you guys agree it was drugs and drug-related crime. Am I right? Did we do that? Did we say that? And today, what I'm hearing today, we're going to take monies from this fund, or this new tax, and that money you're going to take, that block of money you take, that money will be gone every year to pay for whatever you decide you're going to do now. It's gone. I'm gonna ask you guys of the jobs, of what you guys propose to us, the hires, the additions, the public defenders, how does this address the drugs in our community? How does this address this? How do, what you guys proposing, how do this address the number one problem that come before the courts?
Since I'm at the microphone, I'll answer for the public defenders. The way it helps us, Fred, is, I'm sorry, Mr. Reese, is you know that people sit in jail too long waiting on their cases to be resolved. So from someone who defends people, drug addicts, that sort of thing, sitting in jail for 2, 3, 4, 7 months waiting on their case to get resolved is not helpful in any way for a drug addict. So from my position, getting people out of the jail and where they need to be, and there's more treatment facilities now, still not enough, but there's more, that's my answer to that. So it's
So what you're saying, this is going to bring drug issue down in our community. This should pretty much eliminate it.
Mr.
You're probably asking the wrong person that question.
We're joking around with this. But I asked the question, how many drug task force people we have working in our county? Someone said 2. I asked other counties. I called other counties. They have 1 or 2. To me, it seemed as though we're not really dealing with the problem. We're kind of like Band-Aiding it by increasing salaries over here. And I just don't understand. Help me, help me, Mr. Chamberlain. I almost called you Chamberlain. Mr. Cummings.
Councilman Reese, the city of Anderson.
No, I don't want to hear that.
Well, they got $3 million.
City of Anderson.
No, well, that's where
this county.
Councilman Reese,
let me tell you.
the prosecutor answer the question.
It answered that before to me.
The drug task force is the sheriff's department, Elwood, and the city of Anderson.
Okay.
And they all got more money. The sheriff just got another deputy. The city of Anderson got $3 million of this same kind of money that they can put more boots on the street, but that's up for the city council to do. Elwood's getting more because they've got money. All these cities, those officials and those mayors and those police chiefs, they decide about the enforcement side of it, not us. What we do is decide what happens after they get put in jail. After the law enforcement people arrest them for violating the law, we decide where they go, off to prison, probation, in-home treatment, whatever. That's what we do, and that's what this does. And the delays and the underfunding that we've had in this system is the reason why the jail has been overcrowded for years, and those people are sitting in there, and we can't get them through the system. But the streets are the police departments. The sheriff's the only one in here that can deal with that issue. I'm right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When you're talking the task force, you're talking about a unit. The county has 2 people. Anderson Police Department has 2 people. Anderson Police Department should have 4, 5, or 6 people. I had that discussion yesterday with the, I think, incoming Chief of Police, Lee. So there's going to be some changes there. But here's what everybody gets mixed up about, because they think arresting people is the sexiest thing in the world.
We've done it in my community.
It does not solve the drug problem. We can't arrest our way out of it. If I had 30 deputies assigned to the drug task force, we do not arrest our way out of this. We've got to look at long-term education, rehabilitation, and if you don't want to look at that, then we're really spinning our wheels. We can arrest people all day long, Mr. Reese, but if they don't get help.
My question was, how do this, what you're doing, take care of the drug issue?
And I believe some of the answers were there. To turn the problem around, you got to turn people around. When they sit in jail for a year or 2 years, with no programming, because we can't do it in that facility.
So how are we going to do that,
those
Sheriff?
people, pardon me?
How are we going to program? The judge sentence them.
No.
Are we going to go create a program?
Well, in a new jail, there will be programming.
Now.
There will.
Now.
Now?
Yeah, now.
ARP funds could go a long way, Mr. Reese, and one of my proposals to the county ARP committee is going to be to put a significant amount of funding towards mitigating homelessness, towards people with substance abuse issues having more access to help. If you don't fix those 2 things, you can arrest people all day long, and you're going to be sitting in the same spot. So I agree the drug task force is too small. It's going to grow. That's not going to solve the problem.
What Are you serious?
Oh, I'm dead serious, because you could arrest people all day long, Mr. Reese.
But the
And
visibility.
the problem is still there.
But if we have, if it's known in this county, throughout the state, you come to Madison County, you could get in a lot of trouble dealing in drugs because they have people on the streets, they have people in the houses, wherever. You got informants to putting out that information. If you was to put a program together to really attack the drug issue, not pad pockets, attack the drug issue, I really feel it might be a significant change. Because I'll tell you what, it would change if I would see police officers in my neighborhoods. Especially, you're going to get calls saying, hey, over on 15th and so-and-so, I see some drug trafficking going on. And if you had people kind of in that area, I think it would kind of help. But you're telling me we're going to add these monies to these salaries, and it's going to take care of the drug issue.
I didn't say that.
I know you didn't.
I told you there have been answers, long-term solutions. There have been some answers up here, but most of us don't want to hear that because it takes a year or two or longer. My point is the drug task force itself. Let's talk intelligently about what the drug task force is.
Okay.
It's 5 or 6 people.
For now, right? That's what we believe. That's what you guys. But what if we put 15 or 20 on there? What would happen?
Then 911 calls don't get answered. Simple. It's simple. 911 calls don't get answered because there's not enough patrol people to do them.
I mean, if we add new 50, if we took these funds and we added 15 officers, you're saying that wouldn't work out?
Well, first of all, the largest piece of the drug problem is in the city of Anderson.
Right.
Because that's half the county's population, and that's where most of the issues are. There are those problems in the county as well. But if you want to add 15 people, there's money to do it. Because the city council told us several times how much money they're sitting on.
Yeah.
Well, why they got to be Anderson problem, not the county's problem?
Well, because the county's 450 square miles, Mr. Reese.
Yeah.
And if you think the sheriff's department is going to take care of the city problems, no.
I said we would add additional members to the drug task force to take care of the.
We're all for it. We're all for it.
What I'm saying.
Give us the money and we'll do it.
I think what the sheriff says, the city of Anderson has to, I see what you're saying. The city of Anderson's got to say, hey, sheriff, let's put in 4 more, and the city puts in 4 more.
Okay.
We can't just put in 15. But obviously, that's not the priority of the city administration. Is that correct, Sheriff?
I don't know. I'm not going to speak for them. I'm only going to tell you what they told us.
They have their numbers, but we can't do everything in this county to police Anderson, Elwood. It's got to be
more people in the task force, but you got to be additional people. You can't take them from our ranks now. Would make a dent in the arrest. But you got to think long term, and that's the answers these guys are talking about: adjudication and incarceration, and what happens after.
We already
people
have
don't want to talk about it.
A prosecutor's office and courts that are overwhelmed with the number of cases that they're dealing with. So we arrest more people, they get more overwhelmed. We have a problem with a jail not being big enough to handle all the people we're currently arresting. So it's a big picture problem, and this is a discussion that is an important discussion. It could go on all night long if we allow it to. Let me just remind everybody that we have a motion and a second on the table regarding the hiring of these new employees, one of which is a patrol deputy. So, maybe we're not adding 15 right now, but we're at least adding 1. Sometimes we can't fix the whole problem in one night. So if we can, try to stay focused on discussion or any debate on the motion that's on the table right now.
I don't even know what the motion is, Councilman Gale. It's so crazy, and I don't have no figures. I wrote everything down, but I don't have a total of what we're actually appropriating. I don't know. I got notes here. We're all over the place. I hear the motion. He made the motion, but what's the final number? I hear the positions. We're adding this. We're doing this.
Well, I don't know if we can get an exact number because
Well,
of
we'll have to do it to
the
appropriate it.
FICA and some of those, the
It's appropriate
appropriations
positions,
for
not know the number.
the health insurance and some of those things, we're not going to have a number, but can we get
Then that's an issue.
an estimated number of where we're going to be? We can't get a final number until we deal with all these requests for
We need
raises
to
and how
table
we deal with
this.
that. But I think we really need to at least deal with the boots on the ground, which was my contention, to do something about the challenges that we have here. And so, About around 712,000.
712,000.
Every year,
And then
every year.
FICA and perf.
Every year.
And
Every
we-
year.
But remember, we have $1.5 million available for this. So at this point,
Well, at
we
least-
still have a cushion to address some of these other
At
problems.
least this
later.
gives us a point of reference that we can look at the raises that we had, that
Right.
we're looking at, because we know what we've got to pay on this end to justify the decisions on the other end.
Right.
So I call for the question.
Okay.
Hold on, well, we're not done debating, and I got
so-
two questions I couldn't get in.
Excuse
so
me,
we got
excuse
it
me,
open.
Councilman Vaughn, just give me a second. I did have Councilman Emery, at the same time you called for the question, ask if he could ask a question.
Okay.
Make a statement. I wanna
Or make a statement, okay.
I want to remind the council that the group of folks standing here before you tonight have been bringing this before us for the last 7, 8, 9 months now. The group of folks standing here before you have put in countless hours to see that the additional 1.5 million of public safety fund got passed in this county. This council defeated it. They didn't let that stop them. They went to other cities and towns to get this passed. The only reason we even have the 1.5 million to discuss an additional public safety funds is because of the footwork that these folks put into this. That money was specifically requested, specifically sought after, to address exactly what they're talking about tonight, what their request has been the entire time. So for us to sit back and withhold that after they busted their rear ends to get this accomplished, and it wasn't because of what this council did. This council defeated it.
Right.
This council's not responsible for that $1.5 million.
Yes, we are.
These folks are. No, we're not. We defeated
We
it.
have to vote to appropriate it.
You're right. We do have to appropriate it. But again, these folks put all the work into
I
it to raise
understand
it
that.
for this specific purpose. The other towns and cities agreed that this was a priority and that this was important. They agreed that public safety needed to be properly funded. And to sit here and deny these folks, after 9 months, we've denied them month after month after month coming before us because we didn't have the money. So what did they do? They went out and found the money. They worked, they earned it, they got it. And now we still want to sit here and question their motives and question how they're going to spend it and what they're going to do with it. They've put a very clear, precise plan in front of us for months now.
Well,
So no one up here should really have any questions about
Well-
what we're using this for.
well, I'm sorry.
I disagree with that, Councilman Emery, and some of it I agree with you, but I'm gonna say, I've been asking one of 3 questions that everybody's saying up there. But what you're saying is,
Well, Councilman Bond, if I may, your problem is the entire meeting after meeting, you're lost because you're sitting down here talking the entire time.
Right.
And then you turn around and ask the same questions that they just answered at the podium 5 minutes before because you're down there talking. You
Down
need to
there
pay attention to
talking?
You
Okay.
talk the entire
All right.
meeting down there.
Hang on,
Question
hang on.
here.
agree.
That's what the problem
I
is.
do more research
right.
than what you do in the whole 4 years you've been on, sir.
Councilman Alexander just
You're
called.
not right.
Excuse me.
You're wrong.
Councilman Alexander just called for the question. So, with that being said,
So
we're
we're
going to
voting
take a
on-
vote now.
We're voting on, we don't know how much
Councilman
we're
Vaughn.
appropriating, Councilman Gale. How can we do that?
Discussion is ended. We are now voting on, the question has been called. All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Okay. Todd, would you do a roll call vote for us, please?
Councilman Vaughn,
No.
Councilman Reese.
No?
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Emery,
Yes.
Councilwoman Likens,
Yes.
Councilman Steele,
Yes.
President Gale.
Yes. Okay, the motion carries. Now, with regard to the other requests, would anyone want to make a motion to table that, to automatically put that on the agenda for next month, or?
I
and
make
give it
that
to 'em.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Councilman Alexander. Is there a
And
second?
if I could just briefly on that, that whole argument that Councilman Emery made goes to the request that we made as well. Judge Hoppy was right along the lines with
Right.
these guys asking for this money
Right.
for this purpose, that we have these people who are highly underpaid, highly overworked.
Right.
So that same argument that he made is that what I'm making now for the raise for our people.
Yeah. And from my perspective, speaking just for myself, I agree. I just need to be able to have time to do some math, figure out, and make sure that we don't overextend
I
ourselves.
understand.
on it.
I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
just-
a no on my.
I see how
behalf.
hard, you want
It's
to see
a-
the hardest people that work in this building come up and look at our
Yeah,
employees.
definitely.
And if I could speak to Councilman Gale, when we looked at all this, and I thought I'd calculate yesterday, and there's almost 1.8 million in requests. So, and my suggestion to Mr. Gale was, I know he had gotten with your group, get back with that group, see what can be tabled for a while. We know some of it is one-time expenditures, for instance, your court. I know Judge Hoppy, I think over a year ago, or close to, well, it would have been after January last year, talked about some of the court improvements. There's some one-time things. The sheriff has 278,000 in some requests, one of them being the recognition software and cameras and stuff. I know there's some one-time things, and if we can separate those one-time things that aren't going to be perpetual every month, maybe we can do some things creative. Let's see what we can do, and try to stomach it all at once, or trying to stomach it all at once, I think has been tough on me too, all of us.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so Councilman Alexander made a motion to table the rest of those requests from public safety. Councilman Emery has seconded that. That would bring it back at our meeting in February, so we can have time to work through some more of this, figure out the math, and see what direction the council wants to go. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Sheriff Mellinger, the city of Anderson has something called the Hope Home ARPA funds. It has $1.3 million in that in the Anderson Community Development, that they're going to take requests for grants dealing with homelessness.
I'm going to attend those meetings. I don't know if they've been scheduled yet. I've been
They've
watching
got one
them.
for tomorrow that's a
Okay.
mandatory meeting at 1:30.
Okay, good.
If you go in on a Zoom meeting and.
Is that's not the public meeting?
Well, you
That's
have to be in the public meeting.
proposals?
Okay.
Okay.
It's community development.
That's separate from the public
Right,
meeting.
this is
Okay.
this is not county, this is city of Anderson.
Right.
And it deals with homelessness and finding housing for homeless people. It could be group homes. I've been trying to get some organizations to put a request together because it's federal money, the ARPA funds. And if they don't have requests to spend the money, they kind of lose it. So I just think that there ought to be an organization to put together some plan. The actual grant application has to be submitted by February the 24th.
Okay.
So it's a
But
great
they're hearing
program.
proposals tomorrow? Is that what the
No, they're
meeting's
just listening. You have to attend the actual public meeting, and it's a Zoom meeting
To be
in
able
order
to
to
put a
qualify to
proposal in.
make
Okay.
the application.
All
So
right.
it's
I appreciate that.
Okay.
May I address one thing?
Yes.
Since a lot of my items were taken for our table, this is an explanation, a brief explanation of what my items consisted of. So whether it be a month from now, 2 months from now,
That Jerry complained about.
I'll be
Thank you.
making those requests again.
Okay.
But at least I wanted to give you a heads up regarding what those items were. And they are boots. They're not people, Mr. Reeves.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff.
Hey, Sheriff,
Thank you.
taxpayers gonna see
Thank you
difference, right?
all for attending tonight.
Oh, hey, long as that, I'm good.
And I think we've concluded our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion and a second by Councilman Emery and Councilman Alexander. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Earned our money tonight.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Earned the money tonight, council.
COVID. There.
Just two places here.
Do what? What did one?